Hey guys, thanks for being here. This is a little different kind of video, actually a lot different kind of video, because instead of talking about what's new and wonderful or even new not so good things in the stores, I'm talking about older stuff. It seems like months ago I did a video called What's Old at the Drugstore that you've overlooked, and it was some product recommendations, just things that I feel like have really gone under the radar since there are so many new releases in the drugstore all the time. And so today I kind of wanted to play off of that idea, but I wanted to use products that were some of the first products I ever used when I started makeup. And let me tell you, it was 100% drugstore when I started. I don't think I touched a high-end makeup product till sometime maybe mid-college years, and that was when my sister started gifting me like those Sephora gift sets. Yeah, she started this beast. So this is why I've got this Walmart and drugstore like in my soul. I grew up in a tiny, tiny rural area. I still kind of live in a rural area. Drugstore makeup is what tends to be convenient in those spots. And this was kind of before the days of just hopping online and ordering up whatever you thought you needed. So in this bag, I've filled it with a full face of products. Some of them I had to go out and buy. Some I, happen to have because I've continued using them over the years. But a full face of some of the things that were the first products I ever bought makeup-wise, or that my mom and dad may have bought for me. And part of the fun of this video is that I'm not gonna love everything. I know this because I kind of did a trial run of this look the other day, and I thought, there's not all stuff I love in here, but I actually did create a pretty decent look. And I think what I'm bringing to this now is hopefully a little more knowledge in application after all these years, because I think application is, one of the most important aspects. So I can apply some new knowledge to these older products. A lot of these things, you just don't hear talked about on YouTube anymore. So it's going to be fun. But what's so interesting, and I'm sorry for this long rambly intro, but so many brands have really changed their entire lineup top to bottom since the beginning, You try to think of an eyeshadow that you started using in the late 90s. That's probably when I started, was late junior high. I'm thinking 7th, 8th grade. I remember getting ready for cheering at basketball games at that time. I had my little makeup bag. Now you think back to an eyeshadow that you used in the late 90s, if you're around my age, what is still on the market anymore? I mean, almost every line has completely changed, except a few things from CoverGirl. And CoverGirl is one of the brands that has really kept a lot of the same things. I'm sure there's been reformulations, repackaging, but CoverGirl, I've noticed, has had some products in their line, certain shades in their line that they have had in there forever. This is just some of the first stuff I got into for whatever reason. My mom wasn't really directing me on what to buy. It was like, I think I was looking around at what friends were using and trying to use some of that stuff, and a lot of the stuff is CoverGirl. I don't know why. Maybe some of that stuff was a little cheaper. Maybe the brand just seemed a little more approachable to me. It's funny to put your mind back where it was when you were just starting out with makeup. But anyway, I know I'm going to be talking a lot throughout, so let's just get going. And I already have my skin moisturized. I already have an eye cream on. And the first foundation I remember using is something from CoverGirl called Ultimate Finish, and it says liquid powder makeup. And I remember I first had it in the shade Creamy Natural. That's what I have again. The packaging is a little bit different, but oh my goodness, is that ever the same basic product that I had when it was like 7th, 8th grade? And you might be wondering, Emily, how do you remember, all the stuff that you started out with? And it's crazy because I remember everything. It's kind of like asking my dad to give play-by-play of a college baseball game he pitched at. He could tell you everything, and I'm that way with makeup. So yesterday I went to apply this, and I just used the sponge that was in here, and I wasn't that stoked about the coverage, so I think I'm going to try a Sigma F80. I'm going to try going directly into the product here and just see what I can muster. I don't know. That wasn't the word I was looking for, but that's okay. I'm going to pick some up. Yeah, that's a little better coverage, I must say. So this is a true cream to powder product. If you rub this between your fingers, you can feel the creaminess at first, and then it kind of goes dry. So it definitely does set. I don't know why I started with this particular product, but it must have seemed less intimidating to me, I'm guessing, than just buying a bottle of liquid foundation. I'm guessing that was my mindset. I need a little bit more targeted stuff right in here in the under eye area, so I'm picking some up with my finger. I'm certainly guessing I didn't have these under eye circles to contend with when I was in 7th grade, but who knows? That was not a particularly good time in my life, junior high years. Hey, it was the start of a new era of makeup use, right? And then of course I used makeup throughout high school. I would say high school was the time when I was really starting to like experimenting and branching out a little bit more. Creamy Natural. Might be just a hair light for me on this day, but that's all right. I probably should have actually looked at the shade selection instead of being like, ooh, Creamy Natural, that was the color I had. I feel like it's just straight up medium coverage, kind of buildable, but not the kind of thing you want to build too much. If you've got dry areas, it kind of like looks very matte on top of those, you know? Definitely feels like kind of a soft powder-ish finish on the skin. Next, I need a concealer. I know this was the first ever concealer that I used, and it's the CoverGirl Clean Invisible Concealer. And I got it in the shade Light, and it's a really, like, I think, average liquidy concealer. Like, this stuff can't touch Tarte Shape Tape, but for just minor little problems here and there, yeah, it'll work. So I'm gonna put some around my nose. So I got a little redness showing through. I got like I feel like a little redness on the top of my nose that I could deal with. I know this is kind of light coverage. It's probably gonna look like I'm laying it on thick, but I'm gonna really go around my under eye extensively and into my little areas there that I lovingly refer to as the caverns. I've got this Mally double-ended brush. This was the thing that actually came with that palette I was raving about in my Best in Beauty video. And I said, you know, it's too big for my eyes for eyeshadow, but I love it for some concealer. So I'm just gonna dab this product in all over. It's not the coverage I'm accustomed to now, but if you just had little issues, you know, I could see it being enough. Like just the redness around my nose, yeah, it can do that. But on top of this cream to powder makeup, it kind of looks cakey. And I doubt I had the proper blending tools in 7th or 8th grade. So what was I walking around looking like, honestly? My skin probably didn't even need half the things I was putting on it. I feel like I should have like a late 90s playlist going, like in the background. Wouldn't that be awesome? But I don't know about the YouTube, like, you know, copyright stuff, if I could get away with that. But that's what I'd want to be doing. I still feel like I've got darkness here. And this was the staying power concern for me, actually, yesterday when I was wearing this look. I felt like the under eye circles kind of came back through, but my overall face makeup that was covered in this stuff seemed to do okay. So, yeah, this invisible concealer. There's maybe a reason for that name. Now for powders, I think I remember feeling like I had an oily skin issue at that age, so I was buying the Maybelline Shine Free pressed powder, and I actually had continued to buy this, or I repurchased it sometime more recently and had used it a lot and hit pan on it, and it's in the shade Golden. So I'm just going to dab this on with my e.l.f. complexion brush and kind of use that, setting the under eye a bit. I'm not going to do a ton of powder elsewhere just because I've got cream to powder foundation on. Now my very first bronzer I ever purchased, I believe it was from the Bonnie Bell line. Now there's a line where a lot of my lip products came from. Like before I ever got into makeup, I was all about the lip smackers, and then remember lip licks and lip lights, like those gateway makeup products that Bonnie Bell was putting out. And she had bronzers and eyeshadows, and I got into that stuff too. But that's of course a line that's not available anymore. But I remember one of the earliest things that I ventured into from another brand was this Rimmel Natural bronzer, and the shade Sunlight is what I have here. So I recently repurchased this to kind of dive back into this old guy. And this is honestly quite a nice bronzer. I don't know that I'd contour with it because it is pretty warm, but I will kind of, you know, hit the cheeks with it just to warm up my skin some. And it looks nice. Bronzer, definitely not one of my earliest things, though, to pick up in terms of makeup. I remember, you know, having some kind of a foundation-y face product, having a powder, having some eyeshadows and lip products. and blush. First blushes 100% came from the CoverGirl Cheekers line. So this little size of blushes, I remember one of the first ones I picked up was Soft Sable, but the very, very first one, and I think my mom put it on me like before we went to get our church family pictures back in the day. I remember standing in front of her mirror and she said, you know, everybody looks better with a little blush. And she used the shade Pretty Peach that comes in this, and she swore up and down that was the best shade for absolutely anybody. And so I did use that shade for a while. Now this shade is Soft Sable. It's kind of a neutral with a little shimmer. Apparently more of a recent repurchase by me. And this is actually a great shade. I love this. It kind of reminds me of the soft mint color that I have and that I've more recently talked about in the classic color blushes that are a little bit bigger. Nothing at all wrong with these blushes. And remember in my earliest days of YouTube, there's a shade I think called Golden Pink that I was really into from this line as well. So it's definitely, I think, kind of an overlooked blush line from the drugstore. Now, I never would have highlighted back then. I don't know that I had a clue what highlighting was. And there certainly weren't products that I knew of being sold that were really labeled as highlights. Maybe there was something from the Bonnie Bell line that was kind of like a glowy bronzer, you know, but nothing really like marketed as highlight or contour. But the one thing that I am certain was being sold at that time that did contain something that you could highlight with was the CoverGirl Instant Cheekbones blushes that have the deeper blush, the medium blush, and then they always have that highlight color. That would be the only thing I can think of that it was like a legit highlight from the drugstore in that day. So I'm gonna dab into that. And I love these. You guys know how I feel about these. If you've watched probably like any hidden gems type videos that I've done, or maybe the what's sold at the drugstore, like I think these are just beautiful. And this is coming from the Peach Perfection. I could have just used this peach blush and made it really easy, but I wanted to reference the other style of blush, which was the first style of blush that I picked up from CoverGirl. Definitely needed some kind of glow happening on this skin because it was just so matte with those other products on it. Am I allowed to bring in a setting spray? I never would have had a setting spray back then, but I mean, come on. Can I please just put on a little bit of Hard Candy Sheer Envy Primer Mist? Oh, yes. Okay. Feeling good. Something about that. Is it just a mental thing? Like I know I've applied some setting mist, so I know my skin does not look quite as dry as it did before. Can we talk brows for a second? I can tell you for a fact, when I started makeup, I did nothing with my brows. I still probably had my little like unibrow happening in the center there. You know, just a little bit of light hair that was coming in here that people like to come over and touch, but nobody told me, hey, maybe you ought to tweeze that. I tell you. And then I got midway like into high school and I way overplucked. So in some of my years on YouTube, when some people are like, you know, your eyebrows are way too thick, there was no way in hell I was going back to that tweezed up look that I had in late high school. Or was it into college as well? It might have been that like transition between the two. It was not cute. But I never did anything with actually filling in. They went from too thick to too thin, and I never did anything with them other than some brow gel. But when I finally did decide to, you know, touch them up with a little something, it was the Maybelline Define-A-Brow. This, I think, is the mother of all, like, skinny brow pencils. It's just got that itty bitty tip. I have this in the shade medium brown. I do remember talking about this back in the day, so I'm going to just do a little fillaroo here. This does feel like a really similar formula to that L'Oreal one that I was just talking about in my Best in Beauty. But it's like, why can't we talk about the old stuff too? Huh? Because Define-A-Brow has been hanging around in there in the drugstores, in the little, you know, bottom level of the product selection, just saying, hey, look at me, I'm bright green, pick me up. But you know, the funny thing too that many of us say, and I know I've caught myself saying it as well, drugstore products seem to be more expensive than they used to be. But if you shift your focus downward in the display to, chances are, what are some of the older things in the line, those things are pretty darn cheap. Like a mascara from the CoverGirl line that's been around since God knows when is going to cost you, you know, several bucks less than a newer one that they've put out. And the same goes for pretty much any line. If they've got some older products versus their new releases, The older stuff is kind of like going back to the drugstore prices, maybe you remember. One thing I don't love about this though, like this little comb is kind of nice, but I don't like it as well as having a spoolie on the end. So there's where the L'Oreal wins. And the brow gel that I know for a fact was the first I ever used was the CoverGirl Professional that comes like this, and this is the new packaging now. What I don't like about this product is that it will become cloudy and like look yucky in time, but my favorite current drugstore brow gel would be the NYX Control Freak, because I think that holds better than anything. But this holds all right too. And who can tell me they started with anything else? I mean, I know so many of us kicked off our brow routines with this. May have even put it in our lashes, you know, for that no lash look. Brows are done, and just like I had to pull in a little bit of setting mist, I'm going to cheat one more time and pull in some eye primer. Because if my current self could have told my former self anything, and I'm not sure what brand would have been putting it out in the late 90s. Surely there was some brand that was making an eye primer. I would say you've got to get an eye primer because your cheapo shadows will look 10 times better on top of an eye primer. So Milani eyeshadow primer, that's what I got now. It's what I use and love very religiously. And just put this on all over the lids. And there is one trio and one trio only that comes to mind when I think of the first eyeshadow I ever used. Was there an unwritten rule? Were those of us who were born in the early to mid 80s born with some kind of a chip in our mind that said the first trio you will buy from the drugstore is CoverGirl Shimmering Sands? Because I feel like everybody had this. Maybe I just like saw that everybody had this, so I felt like I needed to go get it too. I'm talking about like classmates and stuff. Like it just the most natural, easiest trio, still sold today. I mean, you cannot tell me of another drugstore brand that is still selling some of the same shades in their makeup line from the late 90s as they are still today. Another thing I used to have was a rockin' CoverGirl shimmery light blue eyeshadow. But in honor of the good old days, I am going to be busting out this sponge tip. And I'm never going to be one to hate on a sponge tip anyway. So I'm going into this lightest shade. And this is still just a really good little trio for anybody for a natural look. I will always have love for you, Shimmering Sands. So dabbing that light shade there. And then I think I'm going to flip over my sponge tip and go into this brown. Start dabbing that on the outside here. I know I can't be the only one who feels a deep emotional connection to this eyeshadow trio. This might have been the most recent and third time that I've bought it in my lifetime. I'm going to pull in my Sigma E25 brush. I'm going to go into that brown, and then I'm going to apply this to the crease. And I never even thought of this, but this kind of feels like back to school makeup, you know? I didn't think of my timing of this, but I am totally thinking about like my school years, my early school years, and I never would have had a brush like this to work with. But like I said, I'm trying to integrate new techniques and things that I've learned over the years with the older products that I started with. I think we need to like hashtag this like Shimmering Sands fam, and you need to tell me if you ever owned this. And if you currently own this, you get to be like, I don't know, you get to hold a position on the board of the Shimmering Sands fam. What am I talking about? I'm going to go to the medium shade. I always remember using this middle shade under my brow because I felt like the lightest shade was too light. So put this there. And remember the Golden Sunrise trio? I loved on that in my early YouTube days. And that was more bronzy, like actual gold. Then because I'm really trying to make the most of this, I'm going in with an even smaller brush. This is the MUA Professional 315. It's that little crease brush that I like. And I got mine at CVS. About an $8 brush, worth every penny. And I'm kind of like deepening up the color in the outer corner. I am so excited. I'm going to see Carrie Underwood in less than a week at the Grand Ole Opry. Tyler and I are going to Nashville celebrating our 10-year anniversary. And we're going to have a little getaway. Mom and Dad are going to be here watching Belle and Cupcake. and we're just gonna go down and have a freaking blast. I have never seen Carrie Underwood live. I've never been to the Grand Ole Opry. I have been to Nashville and know I love that, so it's gonna be so fun. Eyeliner was one of those things that I was definitely slower to start using. I'm almost certain in junior high I wouldn't have probably worn any. Getting into high school, I actually started experimenting with liquid liner, I remember, and one of the first that I had was the NYC liquid eyeliner. So that is still available to this day. And I was wearing this yesterday, and I gotta say I was a little let down by the staying power. I walked out of a store and walked right out into the sun, and my eye immediately started watering, and I like went to dab around it to dab it off, and I could see eyeliner coming off, and I'm like, no, you know, because it's a great black liner, it goes on easily, but the Jordana Color Envy that you often see me using in tutorials can kind of hold up a little bit better than this. But for nostalgia's sake, I'm going to be using this NYC liquid liner today. It wasn't until like post-college years that I would have ever attempted winged liner. So why not go ahead and add some wing. I also remember like some of the first pencil liners I bought were probably the CoverGirl Perfect Point Plus that had the smudger tip on the end. And then the Revlon Color Stay pencil eyeliners, the twist up kind. So going back to the good old days, I repurchased a Revlon Color Stay pencil liner, and yes, I got it in the shade Sapphire because I remember there was a girl when I was in high school, she was a little older than me, and she was always wearing like blue eyeliner, and I always kind of wanted to be like that. So I got myself a blue liner. And these Revlon ones now have a smudger tip at the end. They didn't used to have that. And can I tell you, this is kind of feeling hard as a rock right now. I'm gonna do a little on the lower inner rim and just kind of smudge a little bit on the lash line too. It's not going to be super intense because for whatever reason this feels dry as a bone. Okay, so I don't know if you can see what's happening there, but there is some blue eyeliner kind of smudged under the eye and into the lower inner rim because that was something I attempted to do at times in my high school life. I did always curl my eyelashes. I remember always doing that. And the first mascara I ever purchased, and this would have been one of the first like real makeup products I ever bought outside of, like I said, the Gateway Bonnie Bell products. And it was this CoverGirl Professional Mascara. I think I got it because I saw someone else in my class had some, and so it looked like this. It was maybe a little bit more squared off on the cap or something, but I went and got this puppy again, and the brush looks like that. Decent looking brush, but it's just a very like natural average type mascara to me. It ain't no supersizer, but for the purposes of this video, we will relive the effects of the CoverGirl Professional Mascara. And you know, I can practically remember walking with my mom into the Walmart, hanging a quick left into the cosmetics department, going to the back wall where they had the CoverGirl stuff, bending down and finding this particular mascara that they were selling. Isn't it crazy how some memories are so vivid to you? I probably didn't hang too quick of a left into the store because there was that snack bar in there at that time, but just past the snack bar and into the cosmetics section. It was nice how those two things were conveniently located, because the thing my dad and I would always do was, while mom was still shopping, we'd go sit in the snack bar when I was really young and eat popcorn and Dr. Pepper. The thing that I'm a little bit jealous of these days is that the small town where I grew up now has a Dollar General. And Dollar General sells a surprising amount of makeup. Walmart in either direction from our town was gonna be a half-hour drive either way. You know, that was the closest place to go buy, you know, your drugstore makeup and everything else you needed. We had a little like grocery store in our town, but in terms of a drugstore or like a Dollar General that would sell a good amount of makeup, we didn't have that, and now they do. I think they got it just as soon as I left town. Seriously, I remember buying a few things there before I left for college. And it was like, I really could have used this place. I'm gonna do a little bit of that on my lower lashes too. I think my lower lashes went untouched for much of my high school years. I don't think I ever put anything on there. Because I believe I did once and I was burned by it because I got horrible smudges. I feel like I could use a little more powder on the under eye. A little bit more of this maybe. Is that helping? I don't know. You know, one way I'm gonna dress up this look, something I never did until I was well out of college and into my early YouTube days. I never did false lashes. And you know how much I want to go back to the little me going to a prom and pop some false lashes on me. We live and learn, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and add these to this look. These are my Salon Perfect 615s. That glue is drying. Yeah, that would have been a really fun touch for a prom, you know, or like a big game you were cheering at. Pop on some false lashes, but no, never touched this stuff until I was far beyond college. As far as the first lip product or actual legit lipstick I ever remember getting, I believe it was from CoverGirl and it was from their Continuous Color line. And it was like a bronzy type, like shimmery brown color. And I thought I was gonna find that at Ulta. I just, for some reason, thought Ulta was gonna have the best selection. They're not even carrying the Continuous Color lipsticks there. If I went to Target, I probably would have found it in hindsight. And this one is one that I've actually raved about more recently. If you like kind of a pinky mauve color, I had picked this up from Target not that long ago in the shade 550. I really like the feel of these lipsticks. There we go, guys. Finished makeup look. Shall I take my hair down so we can really make this serious finished look time now? Maybe that wasn't such a good idea. My hair is not done at all, but when all else fails, just throw it over one shoulder, right? But yeah, there are definitely some things I like about this look. Some products of the past that I enjoy, would recommend, would continue using. Also some things that I was not so impressed with. So the takeaway from this video would be that I'm probably not going to be using the Ultimate Finish a whole lot because that cream to powder, I feel like it gives you an instantly like slightly cakey look that doesn't continue to look so hot once other products get piled on top of it, you know? The clean invisible concealer, if you've got minor issues, fine, but if you've got like actual under eye discoloration or something like that, age spots, sunspots, it takes quite a bit of product to cover that. Nothing wrong with the Maybelline Shine Free Pressed Powder. Really haven't reached for this in quite a while, but as I recall, this keeps the skin very, very matte. They also have a loose version of this powder too. Absolutely love the Rimmel bronzers, and these are so cheap. These were like less than $4, I think, maybe $3 and change. The CoverGirl Cheekers and Instant Cheekbones blushes. There are so many like great little shades within these ranges, and it's really cool how the Instant Cheekbones do give you a highlight because that glow on my cheeks, I am really enjoying that. The Shimmering Sands Trio. Yes, I really think it's a legitimately good eyeshadow trio, truly. And I have pulled this out from time to time. I would really recommend it to somebody who is just starting out with makeup because you can't go too deep and dark with this. Like even if you build it up, as you saw I did, like in the outer corner and stuff, it wasn't getting too dramatically dark. NYC liquid liner, definitely one of the first things I used liquid liner wise, but not one of the best anymore, sadly. I mean, it's got nice black intensity, but for staying power's sake, Jordana Color Envy is good. Also, this was before the days of the nice little easy pen style liquid liners like the Physicians Formula Eye Booster. Love that one. That's a great kind of training type eyeliner. This Revlon Color Stay eyeliner that I just bought is so dry. I was so not impressed with this. I mean, there are so many nice creamy eyeliners now in the drugstore. I'm thinking of Milani. I'm thinking of these like Maybelline Master Skinny. Physicians Formula has some nice retractable pencil liners. This was not cool. The brows. Yes, this is just a totally fine brow pencil, but I wish it was a spoolie on the other end and there really is, I think, an advantage to that with kind of helping to sheer out color you put in your brows and helping blend it on through. This gel is just fine too. I'm a firm believer that you don't have to spend a lot on brow gel, but if you want something that holds really, really well and never makes your brows feel overloaded, that's the thing. When this is new, your brows really feel like there's a lot of product going into them. So the NYX Control Freak Brow Gel is a favorite. CoverGirl Professional Mascara, I mean, it's not the worst, but it's not the best in my opinion, but definitely was the first that I ever purchased. And then this lipstick, like I said, I love this shade. So I've raved about this before, the 550 CoverGirl Continuous Color. I think that's really beautiful. So yay, what's old is new again. I would love to hear in the comments section, love, love, love to hear what were some of the things that you remember first buying for your makeup collection. Give me a sense of what your makeup bag looked like. If it was high-end stuff, tell me, you know, what was it? I had some friends that had really, really sensitive skin and couldn't pull off like certain brands of drugstore makeup, so I remember some of their first things were like Clinique, and I just find it interesting, you know, where did you start? And looking back, were those good decisions or bad decisions, or how would you improve and change up the look? I want to hear your story. Thank you so much for watching this crazy old video, and I will see you guys very soon. Bye.